What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Coffee and Analytics. I'm your host, Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com. So cheers, brought to you by Duncan. There you go. Truth be told, I got Duncan this morning. I've twice filled this up with regular brew coffee, which also happens to be Duncan, because that's how much coffee I need to get excited about today's topic, which is welcome to Q2. Lots to go over today, like always. I tend to talk a lot. If you're participating live, feel free to ask questions in our chat room, and I'll make sure we address them. But here we are, we're in Q2, and because it's April 17th, we're now 17 days into Q2, which means we're progressing way too fast into almost being into the back half of this year. So one of the big topics of today is figuring out how do we get to celebrating the successes that we have in sales or development or in brand in general, and we'll dive into that. But first, I want to start with the topic of value. Now, many of you have heard me talk about deal value, in that in franchising, we tend to only apply the franchise fee as the deal value when it comes to getting a deal done, driving a franchisee to sign an agreement. When the reality is the depth of that moment is so significant that the return is much greater than just the franchise fee. The return comes from royalty, if that franchisee expansion, validation. And so when you start looking at just the impact to the business that just one franchise owner has, it can be potentially tremendous. And so all brands get to this point of saying, let's get to exit, and the value of that franchisee being significant. The combination of multiple franchisees creating value ends up leading to an exit. Whether you choose to exit or the business chooses to exit, or life chooses to exit you, there will be an exit. And so when you think about the value of a franchisee, it's so tremendous, yet oftentimes we're commissioned on the franchise fee. Yet the impact of the business is so great that maybe there should be other commissions or bonuses that are attractive to the sales team. And so I start there from a sales standpoint so that we get into the good news. But on the other side, if you just think about the human impact that driving a franchise owner into your system has, it is quite beautiful. I mean, you're taking someone who has dreamt of some sort of greater life than they have currently, whether that's lifestyle, whether that's wealth building, whether it's something that they leave to their family, which in last month's webinar, we dove deep into the reason why franchise owners are buying, and it tends to be for their family. And so you think about the impact that you're having on human beings' lives, it's so significant, yet in franchising, you're only as good as your last deal. And so most CEOs or founders operate on go get me that next deal, the next deal, the next deal. And I've told stories about the brands that I've seen really take off and have tremendous success. They hyper-focus in on the deals that are coming in, because if you can get a franchise owner to scale, again, the value is tremendous, and the amount of time that it takes for you to support that operator is actually less because you're dealing with fewer franchisees. And so oftentimes we forget to stop and smell the roses, because we're only as good as our next deal. In my opinion, this opens up a tremendous opportunity for a few things. One, what would a world look like if there was a bonus paid to your franchise development team, start to finish, qualifier all the way up to the CDO, that said, all right, if this franchise owner, milestone one, is go greater than the average first year sales, that triggers a bonus. If that franchise owner opens up their second unit within 2 years, that triggers a bonus. If the franchisee expands, it triggers a bonus. If they hit their development agreement, it hits that development bonus. And so I say that because now all of a sudden, the sales team doesn't disappear and hand it off to operations at sales. They're actually a part and invested in the success of that franchisee long term. And so what now you start doing is you're building a culture around franchising. If I had to evaluate or cast the overall evaluation of all these brands that I've seen, there's very few where the North Star of the franchisor is pointed at franchising. Oftentimes, there is confusion as to what is winning by department. Marketing is totally driven on getting people into the unit, which in reality is impacting sales volumes for the franchisees, which will encourage them to grow. But oftentimes, marketing and sales don't communicate on how do we hit those added goals. And so now, if you bonus the entire organization on breaking the average in first year, you could create a moment that's like now the whole organization is celebrating the singular moment of we just need one franchise owner to come into our system, outperform the average, and scale. And so now everything that we do from a coaching or consultancy standpoint goes back to how do we accomplish those three things with our franchisees, which in turn creates more deal value, which in turn creates a greater exit. And so when we point towards celebrations, which is a big point of this week's or this month's Coffee and Analytics, there are multiple things that we need to be celebrating with that franchise owner. If we take from a content or PR standpoint, we have the signing, we have a lease signing, we have an opening, we have the first year milestone, we have expansion opportunities. And so now that creates 5 other content opportunities around one singular event. And then you think about the distribution channels of, can we post this on our LinkedIn? Can we post this on our website? Can we post this in the media? Can we get this on the wire? Can we do an ad campaign around it? And now all of a sudden, all the celebratory moments are happening around a single franchisee, which is creating tremendous impact for your brand, which ultimately for franchise sales, we got to create a sense of supply and demand or the fear of missing out, that if we can create that energy in a city, in a state, now more people will inquire, which in turn you can go and rinse and repeat. You can do the exact same process of how do we get a franchise owner in that has all these moments? How do we celebrate those moments internally for our franchise sales team? And then how do we celebrate those moments internally for the entire organization so that our North Star remains pointed at franchising? And that creates a tremendous opportunity. Again, like part of that opening statement revolves around the fact that we sign a franchisee, take a deep breath, and then we go try to get another franchisee. And yes, it takes a lot of energy to get that next franchisee, but what if we take a portion of that energy and put it against that person that already signed? And so like I was talking with a client a few weeks ago, and they said, talk to me about the handoff of franchise signed to operations. I said, here's how you handle that handoff. But at 90 days, do you call the franchisee and check in and say, how's the process going? Did I sell this the right way? Maybe, maybe not. Opens up a door of opportunity so that now sales are invested in the success of that franchisee. All right. The other swing of my note, if you read it or if you are reading it, is around how do we create this celebration around the brand. And so I said, even if you didn't hit your sales goal, a celebration for the brand gives your business and your team an opportunity to find the roses to email, meaning what is attractive or good about our business in the last quarter. So I encourage our team to tell our clients that we have to have a good news moment once a quarter. It's a great starting point. And yes, signings, openings, milestones, everything else can fit into that narrative. But what does it look like at the end of a quarter to celebrate things? Now, sometimes our clients say, well, we didn't sign any franchisees. I say, that's fine, but I bet you had other good things that happened. Did you hire anyone? Any promotions? Any LTOs that did well? Any franchisees celebrating a milestone? And so when you pull out the good news and you formulate it into a press release and you use that as the starting point of distribution to say, here's the good things that happened in the quarter, Again, it gives your team a chance to smell the roses and celebrate the wins. It gives the community a chance to celebrate you. It gives your franchisees an opportunity to celebrate you. And celebrations and buzz are the secrets to getting other franchisees excited about the brand for fear of missing out. That's why I buy. I buy because I need one, I'm passionate, obviously. The check marks of owning a business are there. But then some trigger makes me say, yes, I'm ready. I want to do this with your brand. And this gives you an opportunity to push it over the edge. So even if you didn't hit your sales goals, I see it as a huge opportunity to lift up your story and use this as, again, something out there in the World Wide Web that can have impact. I said it's a lot easier to grow when you have a happy mindset. Thus, even if the rocks you set out to crush in Q1 weren't crushed, you can still find wins. I've done this. It's a simple sales training, and it's by no means mine. But whenever we're having people on our team learn how to pitch the media, I say, go ahead, tell me what the story is. And they say, here's the story. I say, okay, now make the biggest smile in the world and tell me what it is. And automatically, like, it just feels better. And so the problem or challenge with franchise development is that oftentimes the goals are pulled out of the sky. And so we're going to do 15 units this year. And if we don't do 15, we're failing. And what that does is it continues to push down the team. And when the team is failing, it's hard to find the juice to get excited when that new candidate is coming in. And therefore, there's the opportunity to get overwhelmed in the sales process as a sales team, sense of seeming too urgent or that desperate. And so how do we take these happy moments, even if we didn't hit them all, frame them into a story, and use it as an opportunity to drive success within the organization? Wins drive people to want to be a part of your mission too, like someone that's on the outside, they want to be in this. Thus, building a piece of content and placing it on PR Web can still impact the ghost leads that are flying around the internet. And while I don't believe that all news is good news is good news. How many units did you sign? How many units did you open? Any franchisees expand? New products at launch, sales volume increases, record sales, some sort of social campaign that went well. Like, the reality is you can find wins every quarter, whether it's going up or down. It doesn't matter. Find those and get them out there, because you want your buyers to be super jazzed up about what you're doing as a business, which in turn, CEO, get your team jazzed up about the wins, whatever they are. Development team, get your franchise candidates excited about the wins, whatever they are. Organization, point to that North Star. Everybody get engaged with being a part of a franchise brand, and all work towards celebrating these moments. The second thing is reflection. All right, so we didn't hit our goals. We found our wins, we found our opportunity to celebrate them, but now let's look at what we would have done differently. And I said, what would you have done differently in Q4 of 22 and Q1 of 23, now that we're in Q2 of 23? If you didn't hit these, what do you wish you would have done differently? What would you have accelerated? What would you have modified? And I go through this. I just went through this weekend. I was like, looking back at Q1, where were our mistakes? And so a big focus for our organization is the remote culture of how do we, one, build a culture, two, how do we build a culture of accountability that in turn delights our clients. And so I'm reflecting on what would we have done differently to have made this even better. And it's a good practice to go through. So you're crushing your sales goals. Let's say you've crushed your sales goals, but you're butting up against a real estate challenge or a labor challenge. Well, use this as an opportunity to reflect backwards and say, okay, if forced or my brand closes to solve this issue, what would I have done differently? Most of the time you can find a nugget or two that you can now cross apply to things that you want to get done in this next quarter. What's the number one thing, not leads? Think what comes before leads. That you can do in Q1 to change your narrative. How's the foundation looking? Any cracks? Your website, does it have a why you why now? Any future enhancements to the business model worth exploring that you're thinking through? I mean, these are all things that the reflection into your wins ends up creating a huge opportunity. So We're into Q2. Do you have a celebratory piece of content that's out there in the world? If not, let's get it done. And now, how do we do that? We can find wins in various areas. We're going to reflect on things and try to find opportunities to lift us up in the next quarter. And now comes the focus. So in today's world, your competition is not just another company that sells burgers, is also brands with similar investments, because the franchise broker world has changed the candidates buying process. When looking at data, many don't know what they wanted to buy, especially outside of food. Thus, they look at 3 to 5 similar investment models and compare. So oftentimes when I say to a brand, tell me about your competitors, they go direct. If I'm Nick's Burgers, Bob's Burgers is my competitor. But if Nick's Burgers costs $500,000 to get open and Mike's Bakery costs the same, we might not be serving the same product, but to the buyer audience, we're actually competing against each other, because it ends up being, what can the franchise buyer buy? And so I encourage everybody to take a step backwards. And oddly, there's a spider walking on my screen. Not anymore. Coffee analytics special. I encourage everybody to look at similar investments that can come up in a buying process, in proximity, in buzz. Like, just have those. And then as a secondary statement of focus, look at things that they're doing that you like and write them down. Most ideas aren't anything new. They are created and then borrowed as we go on. What you spend in Q2 will likely define the outcomes of 2023. 6.4 months. This is how much time the candidates, all the way back to the start of 2022, franchisees are saying, on average, and it's not moving, on average, 6.4 months is how much time it takes me to go from impression to inquiry. So that means today, right this second, I look on this screen and there's a Facebook ad for Nick's Burgers. Okay, what's this? And I might bookmark it, and I might come back to it over and over again. 6.4 months from now, on average, is when I'm going to turn into a lead. So that's an important thing to think through, because 6.4 months from now, we are hitting November. And so if that's the buyer journey, sometimes longer, sometimes less, then what we do in Q2 ends up being super impactful, which is why we have to celebrate the good news. So it shows that we're actually on the right path this year. Got to start thinking about our future, what's going to stand out, and we got to really define our focus. And so if we do this now the outcomes at the end of the year can have tremendous value. So in your backcasting, make sure you're setting some very strict goals. Now, what I typically advise then, and we all work on a calendar year, and with that in mind, we have some good conferences. There's a multi-unit conference coming up. There's a New York Franchise Expo in this quarter. So there's good things that I'm sure a lot of brands are participating in. Make sure that you're elevating up your spend and your attention now, so that at the end of the year, you're hitting some of those sales goals that, whether real or fake, they're still impacting the business. Existing franchisees expanding is big news and will drive more deals to future Z's. What I didn't say in there is also the value of the resale, because that protects a unit from closing, and it shows the value of franchising in that there's a brand that come exit, the valuation is actually higher. So existing franchisees expanding and resales are big news that will drive more deals to future franchisees. So on the existing model, the reason why, even if existing franchisee is buying the resale, the reason that's tremendously valuable is because they know the secrets. They know how all the numbers work. They don't need an item 19 to understand how much they can make. They know how much they make. They're expanding. That means they know the secret. Those are the highest and best value back to your business, because they know how the money works. And so highlighting those front and center: website, webinars, newsletters, digital ad campaigns, bringing them to Expo if you're doing it. Make sure you're celebrating those existing franchisees willing to expand. Also, huge opportunity on your focus is if you were to do a webinar to your existing franchisees for 2 reasons. One, ask them, say the challenge at hand is, if we were going to sell just one more franchise, what would you advise us to do? Oftentimes your franchisees who have been there, done that, have the secret. and I would listen to them. And two, see who shows up to a webinar about growing within your brand. Even those who just open your email and don't attend give you an insight that you have groups of people within your system that are interested in expanding. And then I said, we have a client who looked under the rocks from the previous development team and found 100 deals. That is not a typo. 100 deals. I want to know what he did. Ask me offside this call. Feel free to reach out and we can tell you how he went backwards with focus, looked back in the past, found the wins, and put it to work. And that helped him really accelerate a brand growth that was not at that pace. So now that we're 17 days into April, if you're watching this in real time, maybe 18, 19, 20. If you're not, now you need to micro down your vision to this 90-day sprint, which is less than 90 days. Stack up a bunch of little wins and see what you can do this quarter to have overall impact on this year. Don't play not to lose, play to win. Most of us find ourselves trying not to lose, which puts us in defense. And right now, we can be defensive in Q3 and Q4 as we gear up for a presidential year next year. But right now, try to get the offensive mindset, because what you do this quarter is going to dictate what the story is for the rest of this year. And frankly, again, in the backcasting moment, if you were to reflect backwards and look 6 months ago, it probably is defining what's happening in your company now. The decisions you made from a people standpoint, the decisions you made from a growth standpoint, the decisions you made from a budget standpoint, all of those things that happened 6 months ago are now making impact now. So the end of last year into now has impact. So hopefully the end nugget is find those wins, get it out there into the universe, make the world know that you've done something great. That will have impact, I promise, on the growth of your franchise brand. 22 minutes, 23 minutes, kind of a record for me. Happy Coffee and Analytics Day. It's not even a thing, but we'll call it good news. Thanks for being a part of our journey. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing where you go next month when we return with another Coffee and Analytics. See you guys.